Restored marriage testimony. The two of us were still sharing the same bed. Ariana, how did your restoration journey actually begin? We had been married for almost 19 years when I started to feel that things were not going well between us. My earthly husband was cold and distant. I, who's still a contentious and very silly woman, started to confront him, always asking what was happening to him and trying to force him to talk, and this, of course, only made things worse between us. Then, in November, on my birthday, I was sure that there was something very wrong. The man who was always very affectionate and attentive on that day of all days was extremely cold and only celebrated my birthday by obligation. From that day on, until I found your ministry, I started desperately looking for evidence of what was going on. And as God says, when you seek, you will find. Finding out that he was with another woman, and as if that weren't enough, she was my, in quotes, friend at work, I went ballistic. I insanely confronted him, asking for an explanation. I called the other woman. How crazy. However, both denied it, and there was no way to prove it. Even though they both denied it, I was sure it was true, so my world collapsed. From then on, things got worse and worse. My jealousy, regular confrontations, and just being a bit insane, he got more and more distant, and I got hurt every day and buried myself even more in my foolishness. As I already knew God from hearing about him, but not having a true personal relationship with him or his son, and truly believed that marriage was for life, I started to turn to him. However, I neglected to give up on my destructive behavior, and the more I tried to resolve it on my own strength, the more my marriage fell apart. At each of the December parties, including our wedding anniversary, which was this month, I felt empty and powerless. Everything he did left me feeling horrible. If he was cold, I would fall apart. If he was attentive, I thought it was fake and was disgusted. How did God change your restoration, Ariana, as you sought him wholeheartedly? It was in the month of January when I discovered some of his conversations with the other woman about their relationship, and they even talked about child custody. And even worse, I discovered this the night before his birthday, after all the celebrations we were scheduled. I had the most challenging night of my life. My desire was to end all lies. I decided I would enjoy the event. Then, in front of all the friends and family, I would tell all and show everyone just who he was. But it was on that day that the Lord began to break me. I spent the night battling with the Lord as he began to show me who I really was, that I was responsible for everything that had happened. I started to see myself, the size of my ego that led to the quarrelsome, contentious, Pharisee, hypocritical woman and owner of the world person that I was. I understood that I had been deceiving people for a long time, demonstrating a holiness that was not true. In fact, I was managing to deceive myself. I also understood that the real reason why I was going through the situation was because the Lord had been trying to get my attention for a long time, and I did not give any true importance to him. From that night on, the Lord began to shape my character, and I have since decided that I would only take a step if I went with the Lord's permission. And my first attitude in total obedience to my beloved Lord was to keep all plans from my husband's birthday celebrations, because my heavenly husband told me that I should honor him regardless of his behavior. How difficult I can never describe. Since then, I have been coming day after day, completely surrendering to my heavenly husband, and I have found that nothing, absolutely nothing, is more important to me than him. How I praise and thank you for not giving up on me, beloved of my soul. How happy is the man you discipline, Lord, the one you teach your law to. Psalms 94, verse 12. Were it not for the Lord's help, I would already be dwelling in silence. Psalms 94, verse 17. What principles of God's Word or through the resources, Ariana, did the Lord teach you during this trial? There were so many principles that I learned that I can't even list them. Even before I threw myself into the arms of my heavenly husband, I already understood that I shouldn't share any of this with anyone except him. However, the Word of God and the resources of RMI strengthened me in this decision, and so this was one of the principles that I managed to keep faithfully and still keep today. Our help is in the Lord who made the heavens and the earth. Psalms 124, verse 8. Keeping silent, winning without words, and not seeking explanations from my earthly husband is one of the most difficult principles to maintain, but the Lord has sustained me. In the same way, women, each subject to yourself to your husband, so that if he does not obey the word, he will be one without words. 1 Peter 3, verse 1. Another principle that has made a lot of difference in my restoration journey is not to be contentious, instead to try to keep kind and gentle. It is better to live in the desert than with a quarrelsome and embittered woman. Proverbs 21, verse 19. Pleasant words are like a honeycomb, are sweet to the soul, and bring healing to the bones. Proverbs 16, verse 24. What were the most difficult times that God helped you through, Ariana? Great were the struggles waged in this process of restoration, but the Lord has never forsaken me. Even when I wanted to give up and throw it all away, my beloved and beautiful heavenly husband took care of me as I had never been taken care of. It strengthens the tired and gives great strength to those who are weak. Isaiah 40, verse 29. The turmoil of emotions I faced after discovering that my marriage was not as solid as everyone thought it was practically maddening. And I struggled against my mind that insisted on wanting to dissect and discuss every scene that I had become aware of, even though I hadn't seen anything. But at those times I poured myself into the loving arms of my heavenly husband, and he always quieted my heart and made me know that everything was his and in control, and made me see the beautiful things he was planning for me. Ariana, what was the turning point of your restoration? One day, after a very difficult week, with many struggles at work and countless completely unpleasant discoveries, I said a prayer to the Lord, giving up everything. I said that I couldn't stand to fight for my marriage anymore, that I was basically giving up, and I was no longer interested in restoration. My focus and lessons would be only to get closer to him. I said that everything was up to him, and that all my prayers now would be just to get closer to him. That very same day, I discovered that my earthly husband had blocked the other woman on our social network page, the same page that I never logged into but was informed by another friend. I was so amazed that I had no words to thank my beloved, as this was one of the requests I'd made most in my prayers early on. Only then did I realize that I was really understanding the principle of leaving my heavenly husband in control of everything, and that he knew exactly the right time and every detail of my restoration journey. In the days that followed, I also noticed that my earthly husband had deleted the other woman's contact from his cell phone. I wanted to make it clear that I had access to his information by chance, that I was not snooping. In fact, I believe that my beloved provided everything for me to know this information, because he was saying softly to me, "Rest on me, I know what you need, and I am taking care of everything." Our heavenly husband is beautiful, and I have no words to describe how much I am in love with him. Tell us how it happened, Ariana. Did your husband just walk through the front door? Ariana, did you suspect or could you tell you were close to being restored? My earthly husband never left the house. Our detachment happened with the two of us still sharing the same bed, which was extremely difficult. After I discovered RMI and started to apply the principles contained in the available materials and in the Bible, which I can no longer distance myself from as His Word is everything to me, things started to change. I stopped being contentious, started living and taking pleasure in submitting to my earthly husband, and consequently, he got closer to me. We went back to talking about any topic and laughing together. But I still felt insecure as I knew that contact with the other woman had not ceased. However, days after I found out that he had blocked all contact with the other woman, we were returning from an exam which he had to do, but insisted that I accompany him when he started talking to me about the other woman. Among many things that he declared to me that he could no longer bear to have contact with her, that they had a final discussion, sounded like a violent fight, and that he took the opportunity to exclude and block her from every means possible, and from that moment on, he was asking God to strengthen him, that he would not go back, and that the Lord would restore everything that he had lost. Can you imagine how stunned I was to hear those words? My earthly husband went on to say that because he wanted to walk according to the Lord's purposes for our marriage, and especially for his life, he wanted to become the man of God he should be, and basically became my spiritual leader, just not in those exact words. We had an amazing conversation with me saying little to nothing, just nodding and smiling. I praise my beloved because he helped me manage and control my emotions while keeping silent. Despite this, I had this certainty: I will live until I see the Lord's goodness on the earth. Wait on the Lord, be strong, courageous, wait on the Lord. Psalms 27 verses 13 and 14. Would you recommend any of the resources in particular that helped you, Ariana? Yes, absolutely. I recommend that you read the books How God Can and Will Restore Your Marriage, and then be sure to read The Wise Woman if you already believe your marriage will be restored, because it gets you ready for what's to happen. I also recommend each of the Abundant Life courses and reading the devotionals and daily encourager each morning before the lessons. But I mainly recommend the daily reading of the Bible, where you will be sure of everything that the materials available at RMI contain. Rather, he takes pleasure in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. Psalms 1 verse 2. Either way, Ariana, what kind of encouragement would you like to leave women with in conclusion? First of all, understand that this journey of restoration is not about the restoration of your marriage solely and exclusively. In fact, this was the way the Lord knew that would draw me to him and get our attention. So if you haven't already, immediately start putting God where he should always be, at the center and above all, in control of your life. I can guarantee that you will experience the greatest experience of your entire life. And never give up. Divorce should not be an option, but if it happens or happened, stay strong, because our God is a specialist in turning a curse into a blessing. And we know that all things work together for good for those who love God and those who are called according to his purpose. Romans 8 verse 28.